Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you will receive alerts when there are new episodes. Go get it.
That's what I tell them. Look, I've been grinding for so long, I wake up and chase my goals. I go out and I go get it. How to code, that's all I know. I don't succeed, then I don't breathe. Success, what does it mean? If I conquer all my goals, then I'm living out my dream. Dig deep, go out and get it. Success Chronicles. Compete until it's finished. Success Chronicles. Go take care of your business. Success Chronicles. It's deeper than just winning. Success Chronicles.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chip Baker coming to you with another topic session with my good friend, Vanessa Coppola. Awesome lady, doing some great things, changing lives. And I'm so thankful to have her on again. Always a blast, just talking life and success with her. And today, we're going to talk relationships.
Oh, thanks for having me, Chip. I love being here with you. It's so fun to just get to riff on these topics, and relationships is a good, juicy one.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
yeah,
Yes.
I think it hits us both hard. I know for me, it's one of the things I'm the most proud of in my life. And I think the Handel method, which is the method I work with, just has some really powerful tools to help create relationships that you love, that you're proud of, that are meaningful, that are connected.
Yes.
And I know we both really resonate with that and the power that can have in our
No doubt
lives.
about it. No doubt about it. It's good stuff. Before we kind of dive into it, I think one thing that hits home for me is, any success that I've had, anything that I've been blessed to achieve, it hadn't come from me alone. It's come from great relationships. And so, when we decided to talk this topic, man, I was like, hey, let's go. Man, I'm nothing without the relationships that I've been able to have in my life.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I really do think it says so much about who we are in our and how we understand ourselves is how we show up in our relationships. And a relationship to self is one type of relationship for sure, but we're in relationship in every area of our life. And we're human creatures, we're social creatures. And so to give credit to the relationships around us and how that helps us learn, build who we are, fuel us, and then what we give back to those, I think is so, it's just such powerful medicine for ourselves, for the world, right? And for the relationships themselves.
Well, what else do you have on relationships? Let's dive into it. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get it. Okay, so there's so much on relationships, but I think first and foremost, what I've learned about relationships, what we teach people in relationships is getting clear on the relationship you want. So this could be with family, this could be with work with your colleagues, with your boss, with your direct reports, if you're working with your teammates, if you're on a team, with your family, with your parents, with your kids, with your spouse, right? Like we're in relationship everywhere in our lives. And so being clear about what we want those relationships to look like, feel like, and then how we want to show up. So not necessarily how do we want the other person to show up, because we've all got opinions about how they could do it better, right? But how do I want to show up in my relationships is a really important starting point. And every relationship, it may look a little different, although we can often find the thread, right, of who we want to be, who we are, and how that informs every relationship we have. So one, clarity. I know we've already talked about clarity. Check it out in one of our other topic sessions, right? But I think that is a really important part, is deciding who you want to be. And then we've got to start to really pay attention to who's advising our relationships, who is our advisory board in our head. And truly we can hear our chicken, so our voice of fear showing up in wanting to protect ourselves in relationships, not wanting to look a certain way, or a fear of being vulnerable, right? So we need to acknowledge that voice is going to show up usually when we're in relationships that are stretching us, right? And then we've got to acknowledge that our brat's going to come out. Relationships take work, right? And our brat, it doesn't want to do that work,
Yeah, you got to say that one again for them so
Yeah.
they hear that
Yeah. Okay.
relationships.
Relationships take work,
Yes.
and our brats don't want to do it. So we got to recognize our brats going to make a show, right? They're gonna make a pitch for why you shouldn't do what I'm going to say you should do to get the relationship you want, right? And then our weather reporter really is the voice of like, it's reporting on your life or your relationship, like it's just happening to you. You don't have a say, right? Like it's raining in Seattle, but you're not making the rain, right? And the trick to all three of these is to step back into your authorship, to take action, which we're going to talk about next time, right? But to take action to create the relationship you want. And these three voices are going to want you to step back from that. Take the easier road, take the safer road, take the road where you get to just watch, right? So number one is you got to engage, you got to dig in, right? And then the thing that I have found key in the relationships I've built over the past couple of years, right? And they've been building for decades, many of them. But the way I've really transformed them to be relationships that are so powerful for me and in my life is I've started to tell the truth. So I've started to say what it is I want in the relationship. I've started to talk more about how I feel, what I'm scared of. I've invited those people into my dreams, which can be very scary, right? My dreams of
Yes.
what I want, where before I was happy to keep it superficial. And who wants to hear about my dreams? No one wants to hear about my dreams. It's boring. It's self-centered. It has nothing to do with them. They're going to laugh at me, right? But a great test of a relationship is this person going to care about your dreams, right? And the only way to know is to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
and say the thing and tell your truth and say what you're up to in the world and invite them to come along with you, invite them in the journey, and then and be clear about what works and doesn't work for you in relationship, right? So again, clarity is key. We've talked about that so many times. It impacts your relationship so much. And I think really just getting over the fear and trying to protect ourselves in relationships is the key to making them deep and meaningful. So how are we stretching, telling the truth, showing up as ourselves, and being willing to sit in the response we get? I found often it's great response. And with the right people, I'm like, oh, those are the people I want in my life. Sometimes the response isn't great, right? And at times I have to own, okay, well, how did I communicate in that relationship? Because in relationships, communication is key, right? Like I think is king. It's like, yeah, you've got a truth you want to tell. Yeah, you have a vision for what you want, but how are you going to make that happen? And the conversation is the relationship. So when I took a look around and was like, ugh, I don't really like how this relationship's going. I don't really like the relationship with my dad I have, and I don't really like the relationship over here with this friend. I'm like, well, what am I talking about with them? Right. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, no wonder I'm not having conversations that are inspiring to me, that are telling my truth, that are inviting that level of connection and inspiration. I'm over here talking about the weather. I'm over here making small talk. Right. But that's not who I am. That's not what I'm up to in the world. And so, and there are people that I want with me in that journey, and there are people whose journeys I want to find out about and be curious about. And that all happens in conversation. Right. And so one of the tools I love at Handel Group is we have a very clear step-by-step tool on how to have hard conversations. And a hard conversation for some people is like, oh, we got in a fight, now we need to go get resolved. Like we had a major disagreement. That's for sure a hard conversation. But for some people, a hard conversation is like, hey, and I had to go do this with several people. Hey, I realized our relationship's kind of like, I've been keeping it on the surface, and I want to take us deeper. And I want to own that I haven't been doing that, but I'd like to. Right. And then hear their side and then come up with a plan to really dig in. right? And how we're going to hold each other accountable. So we've got like a beautiful tool for hard conversations that has helped me at any stage of a relationship. And truly, a hard conversation, just when you're like nervous about, it feels a little uncomfortable. Like there's a truth there you need to tell, no matter how big or small it is. And I think that's such a great gateway into developing deeper relationships.
Without a doubt, that is good stuff.
Yeah,
that's so good. I just, there were a couple of things that you hit on that really, kind of stood out to me. I think the first thing is, yes, it takes work. Anything significant worth having, it takes some work. And so you have to realize that going into it, that it's going to be worth it, because in the work, you learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn.
Yeah.
And I think the next component, the thing that I really liked that you talked about was the communication. Communication is king. And I don't know if you know this, but my second book, the title of it is Effective Conversation to Ignite Relationships.
No, I didn't know that, Chip. That's juicy. I love that.
And so I wholeheartedly agree with that. In order to have quality relationships, you have to have effective conversation and communication in those relationships. And you have to have those hot conversation, honest, open, and transparent conversations in those relationships. That's good stuff, man. You get
so good. I love the acronyms. They kill me, Chip. I love them.
The reaction that she got, that's good stuff. I love it. That's a good
Hit it,
stuff.
Christmas. Love it.
Let's go. But yeah, just you have to have those hot conversations, honest, open, and transparent. And so for me, when you look at relationships, like I said earlier, anything of significance that I've achieved, done, learned, experienced, has come from having amazing relationships. People thinking enough of me to look out for me or help me or show me. And so the way that I look at it is, I think relationships are the gateway to everlasting impact. And what I mean by that, if you can picture a bullseye, right? Like you picture, so the center piece, the center level, I think that is the internal, right? And then you have another circle, you go a wider circle. I think that is the external, right? And then you have the bigger circle around that. And I think that's everlasting. And so for me, it's three components when you look at relationships. I think it's internal, external, and everlasting. And from that, the internal, I think that's the relationship with yourself. And that's where it starts. Like if you're striving to make an impact, if you're striving to make great relationships, hey, it starts with you. Right?
Has to.
It starts with you. The relationship with yourself is the most important relationship. You have to have that positive self-talk. You have to understand your why. Why do you do the thing, your triggers? You have to understand all of those things. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because on the other side of that is where the growth happens. All right. So you have to first start internally and do the inner work on yourself. Then the second step of that, the next circle is the external. And so you have to put yourself around people that will help you grow. The quote about the 5 people, or who you are, that quote. But you have to put yourself around people that's going to push you and challenge you and have confidence in you and say, hey, come with me. I'm going to show you how to do this because you're going to be doing this eventually, And so I've had people in my life to do that for me. Like, me? Like, for real? You talking to me? Yes, you.
Sure am. Yeah.
You have to have people that believe in you and do those things, because that's an ever evolving process, right? When you do that, that's another component to having the growth. And what happens from that, you get what you give on the external,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, if you're giving that respect, you're gonna get it. If you
Mm-hmm.
if you're giving that maximum effort, you're gonna get it. If you're striving to communicate the right way, you're gonna get that in return, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the external, all right. And then the everlasting, the third component is, when you've done the internal work, you've done the external work, close proximity. Well, from that work, the seeds that you plant from that work will bear quality fruit for generations and generations, right? And it all started with you just putting in the work to do what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do to develop those relationships, putting yourself
Mm.
around the right people that'll last forever. And then that process, like the trickle effect from that. I mean, I'm receiving the benefits of what people generations ago in my family did with quality relationships. To
Mm-hmm.
this day, I'm still
Yes.
receiving that. And it's not
Yeah.
about Chip. It's about my lineage, the people that have come before me,
Mm-hmm.
who they were, what work they put into it, the effort that they put into it. I'm able to receive those benefits. And that's the everlasting piece. So for me, when you're looking at relationships, it's three components. Starts with the
I love it.
internal, starts with the internal, then it goes to the external, and then which leads into the everlasting.
Mm. I love that. What a beautiful legacy, right? That
Yeah.
both you've inherited, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that you're working to create, to deepen, to ripple out. And I
Yeah.
just love that imagery because it really is a ripple. You're rippling out from you to the world, right?
Yes.
Through time
Yes.
and space. It's so
Right.
cool, right? And then one of the other things I love that you harped on the work, right? Because it is work. And I think one of the things I want to say about it that I know Chip, because you just like the joy you bring to it, right? The
Mm-hmm.
fun you're having with it. It's like the work doesn't have to hurt. It
Right.
might, right?
Yeah.
But you really can. If you're there to do the work, you could go kicking and screaming because the
Mm-hmm.
work's got to be done. If that's the
Right.
game you're up to, the work's got to be done. It's got to get done one way or another. You can go kicking and screaming, or you can find a way to just have fun with the
And,
work.
and there's a
And
time and a place for everything. There's a season. There's
mm-hmm,
a season for everything. Sometimes it's grind season where you have to eliminate
yep.
the distractions. And oh, sorry guys, I can't do all of that. Like I'm focused on what I'm focused on right now. And
Yes.
then there's enjoy the fruits from your labor season.
Mm-hmm.
There's seasons to all of that. And you have
Yeah.
to, I think all of that falls back to awareness for me as well. You have to be aware
Yeah.
of what's going on in those relationships, in your environments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then it just pulls back to clarity and knowing what you're up to in the world
Come
so
on.
that you can be clear on
Yeah.
what season are you in, given what your
Yes.
mission is. What are you up to, right? And then learn to love that season. Whatever if it's the grind, learn to love it, right?
Yeah.
If it's the relax and kick back and, reap the fruits of your labor, learn to love that too, right? But to learn to love it, embrace it instead of resisting the
Mm-hmm.
work, resisting the season, resisting the reality of this is what it takes to be happy, folks. This is what it takes to make a
Mm-hmm.
difference,
I
right?
think,
It's work. And
yeah. Yeah. Just hearing you say that too, it makes me think of short term, long term. Of course, there's some long term goals that you want to get to, as far as relationships, as far as communication, as far as, I mean, pick something.
mm-hmm,
There's long term goals to it. You have to have those long term goals. But I think the special sauce is the ability to be able to be in the moment.
mm, yep,
Like be in the moment right now.
mm-hmm,
Like I'm not, like
mm-hmm.
I know I need to get there, but like bro, if I don't take the right steps right now, I might
Um,
slip and fall before I get to my
mm-hmm.
destination. So I have to make sure that each step that I take is on point right now.
Yes. Yes. It's so interesting because I'm bumping up against that with some of my clients right now where
Hmm.
they're clear on where they want to go, right? And then they are playing around with the actions they need to take, but they keep
Yeah.
questioning the action, right? Like, is it right? Is it not? I don't know, right? So it really is like know where you want to go. Take the time to develop a plan you
Yeah.
think is going to be effective. And I'm not saying the plan's going to go exactly as you plan it,
Got to
right?
take a detour sometime.
Yeah, you got to believe in the plan. You got to believe in the action you're taking is going to land at that result you're playing for, that you're dreaming of. And that way you can just trust and drop in and be present to the work it takes, actually just delivering on the action versus wondering, what if, oh my gosh, what if I'm doing it wrong? This looks so fun over here. Let me get distracted, right? Like, no. You got to stay on point. You got to stay present with where you're going. But, develop a plan you believe in.
Yeah. And it gives you the confidence to do that too when you focus in and just get the reps, in those relationships, in your actions. When you focus in and get the reps, like there's no doubt because you've put the work in. Like you can, like when it's game time per se, like that there is no doubt. Or am I prepared? No, I'm prepared because I know I put the work in. I've sacrificed.
Yeah.
I put the work in. That's not an arrogance. That's a confidence that's
proud.
deserved. Yeah, because
you're proud. Yourself.
Yes.
Your relationship with yourself is
Yes.
there, and it's we've talked about it already. It's foundational, right? You trust yourself because you showed up.
Come on.
You show up.
That's it.
So I think one of the great gateways into relationship work is even just making a list of the relationships in your life. Yourself at the top.
Yeah.
Right. Or one of the people. Right. And then all your people. So your friends, your family, your like who's in your world, right? That you care about, that you interact with. Maybe you feel like you don't care about, but they're still in your world out of necessity. Right. And just rate. How are those relationships going? Right? In terms of how honest, how connected, how inspired are they? Right? And we do, we always do stuff on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like excruciatingly painful. Want it to end, right? And then 10 being like euphoric bliss, sublime, right? Like just so good, almost unsustainable, really, right? And like so good. Right. And then just take a look at your relationships in your life and where do they rank? And then which ones do you want to go to work on? Right. You don't have to go after all of them. Although once you start 1 or 2, it starts to feel easier. You start to build the muscle. You start to put in the reps, and then it's going to start to flow. It's going to flow over. It's going to ripple out. Right. But just take on 1 yourself and 1 other. Right. And that's not quite at the rating you want it to be. Go for it.
Man, so much heat in this relationship topic session. Well, before we get off, I'd like you again to tell the audience about your company and where they can check you out and show you some love and support you guys.
Honest. Okay, so I work for a company called Handel Group, and we have this really cool program called Inner.U, which is a digital coaching program. So we do private coaching, one-on-one coaching. We work with different corporations. We work with different educational institutions. We've got a couple different divisions, but the work that I do is in our private coaching division. So we do one-on-one coaching with individuals, but then we have this really awesome program that is for anybody. People can access it from anywhere as long as they have internet. It's called Inner.U. It's got 12 incredible modules, so really tangible tools to design a life you love. And we handle things like relationships. We handle things like dreaming, which we've already talked about. I think it's like a crazy deal. And actually, I know we have a deal of 50% off consistently for your people, or not 50% off, $50 off consistently for your people, but actually in November, right now, we are in a $100 off sale. So people can get the product for $325. This is why it's such a deal, is because with Inner.U, you get a free coaching session, like a one-on-one coaching session with a coach like me. I do some of them. I've got other colleagues that do them. And that in itself is like worth the price of admission right there. I love it. We just want people to do the program, change their lives, make the ripple happen, leave a legacy they're proud of. Right. And so it's so fun. We'll always have a deal for your people, I think, just because we love you, Chip, and we love your community. But right now people can get it for $100 off. So for $325 total. And that's at inneru.coach. So inner the word, you, the letter, .coach. And we can drop a link, I think, in the show notes for folks. Or but it's so fun. That's where we are. We're also playing on Instagram, and we put out a ton of content at Handel Group. I'm on Instagram too, at Vanessa_HG coach. And that's where you can find us. That's where we're playing to change people's lives, rock their worlds, rid the world of lying.
Yeah, all of that.
We dream small over there, right? We dream small.
All of that.
Yeah.
Well, again, I just want to say thanks so much for taking the time to do the topic session, relationships, and I wish you continued success.
Thanks, Chip. See you next time.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. God bless. Go get it.